A call at midnight. A cold email with those words. You're terminated. My entire world collapsed in minutes. But they didn't know I'm not the type to let myself be crushed. And after just 72 hours, their empire fell too, in ways they never imagined. They thought they were destroying me. They thought I'd disappear quietly into the Chicago night. But when you strip someone of everything, you create something dangerous, a person with nothing left to lose. My name is Ava Miller, and until 3 hours ago, I had a life worth living. The fluorescent lights in Brightcore Solutions' parking garage flickered like dying stars as I stood frozen beside my car, phone trembling in my hand. The email's timestamp burned into my retinas, 11:47 p.m. Subject line, immediate termination of employment. No warning, no meeting. No explanation beyond the cold. Corporate language that meant nothing and everything at once. Effective immediately. Your employment with Brightcore Solutions has been terminated. Your access credentials have been revoked. Personal items will be shipped to your address on file. Signed, Isabel Grant, not HR, not my direct supervisor. The CEO's wife herself, who technically held the title of Chief Operations Officer, but everyone knew her real power came from the diamond ring on her finger and the last name she'd acquired 3 years ago. I'd seen her watching me during the quarterly presentation last week, those calculating gray eyes following my every movement as I explained the new social media strategy to the board. Thomas Grant had praised my work publicly, called it innovative and exactly what Brightcore needs. His wife's smile had been sharp as broken glass. The security guard appeared from nowhere, his apologetic expression doing nothing to soften the humiliation. Ms. Miller, I need your badge and company phone. 29 years old, 3 years with the company, countless nights sacrificed for product launches and crisis management, and it all ended with me handing over a plastic card and an iPhone in a concrete tomb that reeked of exhaust fumes. Did she say why? I asked him, though we both knew he wouldn't answer. He shifted uncomfortably. I'm just following orders. Your personal laptop is already in the box. He gestured to a cardboard container by the elevator. My name scrawled across it in thick black marker like a tombstone inscription. The drive home was a blur of red lights and held-back tears. My apartment building loomed dark against the Chicago skyline, its familiar outline suddenly foreign. Inside, everything looked exactly the same. My coffee mug still sat unwashed by the sink, my running shoes kicked off by the door, yesterday's mail unopened on the counter. But I was different. I was unemployed, terminated, erased. I opened my laptop, my personal one, and started searching. Isabel Grant's digital footprint was everywhere. Charity galas, corporate announcements, lifestyle magazine features. Power couple reshapes tech industry. Isabel Grant, the woman behind Brightcore's success. Lies. All of it lies. She was the woman behind nothing but theatrical displays of authority and paranoid accusations. My phone buzzed. A text from Maya, my only real friend at the office. Ava. What happened? Isabel just announced you were let go for conduct violations. Everyone's in shock. Conduct violations. The words tasted like ash. I knew exactly what conduct she meant, being too good at my job, getting too much attention from her husband. Not romantic attention, God no. Professional recognition. Respect. The things Isabel craved, but could never quite earn on her own merit. I typed back, ask her about last week's presentation. Ask her why she was taking photos of me and Thomas during the coffee break. Maya's response was instant. She's saying you were inappropriate with him. Ava, this is insane. Everyone knows you're the most professional person here. My hands clenched into fists. Inappropriate. The woman who had built her entire career on her marriage bed was calling me inappropriate. The rage that had been simmering beneath the shock finally boiled over. I grabbed the nearest thing, a glass award from last year's Marketing Excellence ceremony, and hurled it against the wall. It exploded in a shower of fragments, each piece reflecting a fractured version of myself. 3 years of spotless work. 3 years of arriving first and leaving last. 3 years of politely declining Thomas's lunch invitation specifically to avoid any appearance of impropriety. And Isabel Grant had destroyed it all with one email, one lie, one moment of jealous fury. I sat on my kitchen floor surrounded by broken glass and made myself a promise. Isabel Grant thought she had ended me tonight. But she had no idea what she had actually begun. She had created something far worse than a disgruntled ex-employee. She had created an enemy with nothing left to lose and everything to prove. The morning after doesn't come with clarity. It comes with bills, rent notice, student loan statement, credit card minimum payment due. They scattered across my kitchen table like accusations. Each one a reminder that my checking account had exactly $1,847 and no promise of another deposit. The severance package? There wouldn't be one. Termination for conduct violations meant Brightcore owed me nothing. I called my landlord, Richard, trying to keep my voice steady. I might be a few days late on rent this month. His pause told me everything. Ava, you've been a good tenant, but I've got my own bills. You understand? 5 days grace period. That's all I can do. 5 days. 120 hours to figure out how to survive in a city that devoured the weak without blinking. My parents' number stared back at me from my phone screen. Mom answered on the third ring, her voice bright with morning coffee and ignorance. Honey, how's the big city treating you? Mom, The words lodged in my throat. How could I tell them? They'd remortgaged their house to help pay for my Northwestern degree. They bragged about their daughter, the marketing executive at a Fortune 500 company. I just wanted to hear your voice. After I hung up, the apartment's silence became suffocating. The walls seemed to press closer, the air thick with the smell of failure. I hadn't eaten since yesterday's lunch, but the thought of food made my stomach turn. By afternoon, I'd updated my LinkedIn, refreshed my resume, and sent out 12 applications. By evening, I'd received 3 auto-rejections and 9 silences. The Chicago job market was incestuous. Everyone knew everyone. And by tomorrow, everyone would know about Ava Miller, the inappropriate employee who got herself fired from Brightcore. Maya stopped responding to my texts after her lunch break. Others went dark too. Jordan from design, who used to grab coffee with me every morning, Pete from accounting, who'd asked me out twice, even Sandra from HR, who'd called me her work daughter. One by one, my professional network dissolved like sugar in rain. I walked the city as darkness fell, needing movement, needing air. Michigan Avenue bustled with life, tourists with shopping bags, couples holding hands, business people rushing toward their intact careers. I stood outside Brightcore's gleaming tower, 40 floors of glass and steel reaching toward a sky I no longer belonged to. My reflection in the polished windows looked ghostly, translucent, like I was already disappearing. Ava! I spun around. A man in a Starbucks uniform stood there, familiar but out of context. Then it clicked. Marcus, from college. We'd been in the same advertising program. Hey, I managed, trying to arrange my face into something normal. You work here? He gestured at the tower. Man, that's amazing. I always knew you'd make it big. The irony cut deep. Actually, I'm between opportunities right now. His expression shifted, recognition dawning. Oh. Yeah, I get it. This economy, right? Hey, we're hiring if you need something temporary. I know it's just coffee, but... Thanks, I interrupted, unable to bear his pity. I'll think about it. But we both knew I wouldn't. Couldn't. The fall from marketing executive to barista would be the final admission of defeat. Back in my apartment, I sat in darkness to save on electricity. My laptop screen provided the only light as I searched Isabel Grant's name again. Every image showed the same satisfied smile, the same perfectly styled blonde hair, the same designer clothes that cost more than my monthly rent. She'd stolen everything from me and was probably sleeping soundly in her Lincoln Park mansion, wrapped in Egyptian cotton sheets, secure in her victory. Something shifted in my chest. The despair that had been drowning me all day suddenly crystallized into something harder, sharper. I opened a new document and started typing. Not a resume or cover letter, but a timeline. Every interaction with Isabel, every strange comment, every hostile glare, every moment she'd tried to undermine me. Then I started digging deeper. Corporate filings, social media posts, charity event guest lists. The wife of a CEO had access to everything. But she also left traces everywhere, digital breadcrumbs that told stories she probably didn't want told. At 3 a.m., I found something. A discrepancy in a charity auction she'd organized. Nothing huge, but interesting. Then another oddity in a vendor contract she'd signed. Then a pattern of timing between certain decisions and certain stock trades. I sat back, my heart beating faster. Isabel Grant had destroyed me because she thought I was powerless. She'd counted on me crawling away, defeated and silent. But she'd miscalculated. She'd left me with the most dangerous thing a person could have: time, intelligence, and absolutely nothing left to lose. The city lights twinkled beyond my window, a million lives continuing while mine had stopped. But maybe that was exactly what I needed. To stop, to become invisible, to transform into something Isabel Grant would never see coming. I closed my laptop and finally smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the kind of smile that would have terrified Isabel if she could have seen it. She thought she'd ended my story. She had no idea she'd just written the first chapter of hers. The coffee shop on West Division wasn't the kind of place Brightcore executives frequented. Cracked vinyl booths, flickering neon signs, and coffee that tasted like burnt rubber. Perfect for people who didn't want to be found. "You look like hell, Miller." Liam Carter slid into the booth across from me, his appearance a stark contrast to the polished engineer I'd known at Brightcore. Stubble, dark circles, wearing a hoodie that had seen better days. He'd been terminated 6 months ago. Another casualty of Isabel's paranoia. "You said you had information." I kept my voice low, scanning the nearly empty shop. He pulled out a flash drive, rolled it between his fingers. Isabel Grant destroyed my life because I questioned her pet project, said I was disrupting team cohesion. But before they locked me out, I made copies. Copies of what? Everything. Project Lighthouse, you know about it. I shook my head. Marketing had been kept separate from whatever the tech division was building. Facial recognition software, but not the legal kind. They're selling user data to third parties, using the app's camera permissions to map faces without consent. Isabel's running it through a shell company in Delaware. Thomas doesn't even know. My pulse quickened. "You're sure?" "I helped build the damn thing before I realized what it was for. There's more." He leaned closer. "The financial records don't match. Money goes in from investors, but different amounts come out. She's skimming. Ava, millions. Why didn't you expose this yourself?" His laugh was bitter. "With what credibility? I'm the disgruntled ex-employee who got fired for incompetence. Remember? That's the story she spun. My LinkedIn looks like a graveyard. No one will hire me. I've been doing Uber Eats deliveries to pay rent." I understood that desperation intimately. "So why trust me?" "Because she's scared of you. Why else would she nuke you so completely? You were getting too close to something, even if you didn't know it." He slid the drive across the table. "Password is Karma 2024. Everything's there: emails, recordings from meetings I wasn't supposed to record, financial documents." I pocketed the drive. "What do you want in return?" "Justice, and my name cleared when this goes public. I've got a daughter, Ava. She's 7. She asked me why Daddy doesn't wear a tie to work anymore." His voice cracked slightly. "I want to wear a tie again." Back in my apartment, I inserted the drive with shaking hands. File after file opened like Pandora's boxes. Emails between Isabel and offshore accounts. Code snippets showing illegal data harvesting. Meeting recordings where she explicitly discussed hiding information from regulatory bodies. But one file stopped me cold. Insurance policy. Inside was a video, grainy but clear enough. Isabel in a restaurant. taking an envelope from a man I recognized as Viktor Kozlov, a Russian investor who'd been sanctioned by the government last year. The timestamp was 3 months ago, well after the sanctions. Holy shit, I whispered. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. Miss Miller, this is James Conway from the Chicago Tribune. I heard you recently left Brightcore. I'm working on a story about tech company practices and would love your perspective. My finger hovered over the decline button. Then I remembered Isabel's satisfied smile, my empty bank account, Liam's exhausted face. Mr. Conway, I might have something better than perspective, but I need guarantees. Source protection, and you verify everything independently. That's standard practice. What are we talking about? The biggest corporate scandal to hit Chicago tech in a decade. But we do this my way, on my timeline. I'm listening. I looked at the files spread across my screen. Isabel had built her empire on lies, theft, and intimidation. She'd crushed anyone who got in her way, leaving a trail of ruined careers and broken lives. But she'd made one crucial mistake. She'd created too many enemies. And now, we were finding each other. I'll need 72 hours to compile everything, I told Conway. Then you'll get documents that will make Watergate look like a parking violation. After hanging up, I texted Liam, "We're going to need more people. Who else did she destroy?" His response came quickly. "I know at least 6 others, all waiting for someone to light the match." I smiled in the darkness of my apartment. Isabel Grant thought she was untouchable, protected by money and power and fear. But she'd forgotten something fundamental about human nature. When you take everything from someone, you also take their fear, and people without fear are capable of anything. I opened a new encrypted folder and began organizing our evidence. Each file was a weapon, each document a bullet. Isabel had given me 72 hours of unemployment before my world completely collapsed. I was going to give her the same. Except, her collapse would be public, permanent, and absolutely devastating. The queen was about to lose her crown, and she didn't even know the game had begun. The abandoned WeWork space on Lower Wacker Drive had been Liam's idea. They never changed the door code, he'd said. At 2 a.m., 7 of us sat around a conference table that had once hosted startup dreams. Now planning corporate destruction. Sarah Hendricks, former CFO assistant, fired for miscalculating a report that exposed Isabel's spending. Marcus Webb, IT security, terminated after raising concerns about data breaches. Jennifer Park, legal counsel, let go for poor performance after questioning the Delaware shell company. The others, all casualties of Isabel's reign, all hungry for revenge. We have 72 hours. I spread the timeline across the table. 3 waves, each one building on the last. We hit them Friday at market open, escalate through the weekend while their PR team scrambles, then deliver the killing blow Monday morning. Like a controlled demolition, Marcus said, appreciation in his voice. Each charge precisely placed. Jennifer leaned forward. The legal implications alone could trigger a federal investigation, but we need to be surgical. Any misstep, and we become the criminals. I'd spent 48 hours without sleep preparing this plan, fueled by rage and instant coffee. Wave 1, Friday, 9 a.m. We leaked the data privacy violations to TechCrunch and the Tribune simultaneously. Sarah, you've got the financial projections showing how much they've made from illegal data sales? She nodded, sliding a folder across. 17 million in the last quarter alone, all traced to Isabel's shadow accounts. Perfect. The market hates privacy scandals. Stock drops, reporters start digging. Isabel goes into damage control mode, likely blaming low-level employees. That's when we trigger Wave 2. Liam pulled up his laptop. Saturday afternoon, peak social media traffic. We released the meeting recordings on Twitter through anonymous accounts. Isabel explicitly instructing staff to hide the security breach. I've got 3 hours of audio, edited down to the most damaging 5 minutes. The beauty is, Marcus added, their IT system still has my ghost protocols. I can see their internal communications. We'll know exactly how they're responding in real time. Jennifer raised a concern. What about Thomas? He's complicit by ignorance, but Thomas Grant is collateral damage, I interrupted, my voice harder than I intended. He chose to be blind to his wife's activities. He benefited from them. He doesn't get protection. Sarah shifted uncomfortably. Ava, this is serious. We're talking about destroying a Fortune 500 company. No, I corrected. We're talking about exposing the truth. Every document is real. Every recording is authentic. We're not creating a scandal. We're revealing one. The room fell silent. Then Marcus spoke. Wave 3, what's the nuclear option? I pulled out the flash drive. Viktor Kozlov, Russian money, post-sanctions, video evidence of Isabel taking payment. That goes to the FBI and the press simultaneously, Monday morning. Jesus, Jennifer breathed. That's not just corporate fraud, that's federal crimes. She could face decades. She destroyed dozens of careers, hundreds, if you count the employees who'll lose their jobs when Brightcore implodes. I felt no sympathy. She made her choices. We spent the next 6 hours refining details, encrypted communication channels, VPN networks, dead drops for physical evidence. Each person had a role, a timeline, a contingency plan. It was like planning a heist, except we were stealing back our lives. Remember, I addressed the group as dawn broke through the windows. Once we start, there's no stopping. They'll try to find us. Private investigators, lawyers, maybe worse. Everyone needs to be prepared for that. I've been living in hell for 6 months, Liam said quietly. Whatever comes next, can't be worse. Murmurs of agreement around the table. We'd all been through our worst already. Sarah pulled out a bottle of whiskey from her bag. Expensive stuff, probably from her Brightcore days. For luck, she said, pouring shots into coffee cups. We raised our makeshift glasses. To Isabel Grant, I said. May she get everything she deserves. To justice, Jennifer added. To revenge, Liam corrected. And nobody disagreed. As the others left one by one, I remained in the empty space, staring at the Chicago skyline. Somewhere out there, Isabel was probably having her morning skincare routine, planning her day, confident in her power. 72 hours. That's all we needed. 3 days to unravel 3 years of corruption. 3 days to turn the hunter into the hunted. I thought about Thomas's quarterly presentation, how he'd praised innovation and courage. He had no idea how innovative and courageous his former employees were about to be. My phone buzzed. Conway from the Tribune. Ready when you are. This better be worth the hype. I typed back, Friday, 9 a.m. sharp. Have your lawyers ready. The plan was set. The players were in position. All that remained was to light the fuse and watch Isabel Grant's empire burn. She'd fired me on a Sunday night. By next Monday night, she'd wish that was the worst thing she'd ever done to me. Friday, 8:57 a.m. I sat in a rented car outside Brightcore's building, laptop balanced on my knees, watching employees stream through the revolving doors. 3 minutes until detonation. My phone showed 5 green lights. Everyone was in position. Sarah at her cousin's apartment in Evanston. Liam at a coffee shop in Wicker Park. The others scattered across the city, all connected through encrypted channels, all waiting for my signal. 8:59 a.m. I opened TechCrunch on one screen, the Tribune on another. My finger hovered over the send button. One click would release 23 documents to journalists who'd been primed for this moment. 9 a.m. Execute. The word came out as a whisper, but it might as well have been a scream. Send, send, send. Documents flying through cyberspace like digital missiles. Data breach reports, customer complaint logs, internal memos showing willful negligence. 9:03 a.m. TechCrunch. Breaking. Brightcore Solutions accused of massive data privacy violations. 9:04 a.m. Chicago Tribune. Exclusive. Documents show tech giant harvested user data without consent. 9:05 a.m. My phone exploded with notifications. Twitter was already picking up the story. Bright core scandal trending. Through the building's glass facade, I could see the chaos beginning. People clustering around phones, gesturing wildly. Someone ran toward the executive elevator. Marcus's voice crackled through my earpiece. Internal email blast just went out. All hands meeting in 15 minutes. Isabel's ordering complete communication lockdown. 9:17 a.m. Bloomberg picked up the story. The stock price widget on my phone showed Brightcore dropping, down 7%, 9%, 12%. Holy shit, Sarah's voice came through. Trading volume is through the roof. Someone's dumping massive positions. The Tribune's website updated. Brightcore stock in freefall as privacy scandal erupts, 9:24 a.m. I watched Isabel's black Mercedes screech into the executive parking garage. She was normally composed, never arrived before 10. Today she practically ran from her car. Designer heels clicking frantically on concrete. Jennifer's update came through. 3 law firms just announced they're exploring class action lawsuits. That was faster than expected. 9:31 a.m. Thomas Grant appeared on CNBC trying to control the narrative. His usually confident face looked haggard. These allegations are completely unfounded. Brightcore takes data privacy extremely seriously. We're conducting a thorough internal investigation. But the interviewer was prepared. We'd made sure of that. Mr. Grant, we have internal emails here showing your company knew about these breaches for months. Can you explain this message from your operations team? Thomas's face went pale as they displayed one of our leaked documents on screen. His stammering response was painful to watch. 10:15 a.m. The stock was down 18%. Nasdaq halted trading temporarily due to volatility. Liam's voice came through, electric with excitement. Local news just showed up at the building. There are protesters already, some privacy advocate group. This is incredible. I pulled up Twitter. Delete Brightcore was trending nationwide. Users were posting screenshots of themselves uninstalling the company's apps. Tech influencers were calling for boycotts. The digital mob had formed, and it was hungry for blood. 10:47 a.m. An emergency board meeting was called. Through Marcus's surveillance, we learned Isabel was inside, apparently screaming at the IT department to find the source of the leaks. She just fired the entire security team, Marcus reported. Says they're either incompetent or complicit. Classic Isabel, destroying others to save herself. 11:23 a.m. Conway from the Tribune texted, "This is Pulitzer material. You have more." "Wait for tomorrow," I replied. This was just the appetizer. 11:56 a.m. Fox Business, CNN Money, BBC Business. Every major outlet was covering the story. Brightcore's PR team had issued 3 different statements, each contradicting the last. The desperation was palpable. The stock closed at 23% for the day, $11 billion in market value, evaporated in 8 hours. I finally drove away from my observation post, exhausted but exhilarated. Day 1 was complete, and it had exceeded every expectation. But the best part? Isabel still thought this was about data privacy. She had no idea about the recordings, the financial fraud, or Viktor Kozlov. My phone rang. Unknown number. "Miss Miller?" The voice was female, professional. "I'm calling from Goldman Sachs. Our risk management team would very much like to speak with you about your recent departure from Brightcore." Wall Street was circling like sharks. They could smell blood in the water. "I have nothing to say," I replied, hanging up. Let them wonder. Let them worry. As I drove through Chicago traffic, I passed a billboard advertising Brightcore's latest product. "Trust in tomorrow," it proclaimed. Someone had already spray-painted "liars" across it in red. Day 1 was over. Isabel Grant's perfect world had cracked, but it hadn't shattered yet. That would come tomorrow, when the recordings dropped, when her own voice would damn her. I pulled into a parking garage and sent a single message to the team. Phase 1 complete. Rest up. Tomorrow. We go for the throat. Isabel had taken everything from me with one email. I'd just taken $1 billion from her with one click, and I was just getting started. Saturday, 2 p.m. The second wave hit during peak social media hours, when millions were scrolling through their weekend feeds. I watched from my laptop as Liam's anonymous Twitter account posted the first audio clip. Isabel's voice, crystal clear despite the recording quality. I don't care if customers didn't consent, they clicked agree to use our app. That's consent enough for me. Just make sure the lawyers can't trace it back. Within minutes, 5,000 retweets, 12,000, 30,000. Then the second recording dropped. The breach affected how many users? 2 million. Then we report 2,000. Add zeros gradually if pressed. Never admit the full scope up front. My phone buzzed constantly. Journalists, former colleagues, numbers I didn't recognize. I ignored them all. Watching the digital wildfire spread. Marcus's voice crackled through. Internal systems are in meltdown. Isabel's locked herself in the executive conference room with legal. Thomas is reportedly on a plane back from New York. 3:47 p.m. Isabel Grant lied was the #1 trending topic globally. Someone had already created a website, Isabel Grant Crimes.com, cataloging every revelation with timestamps and sources. The recordings kept dropping, one every hour, each more damaging than the last. Instructions to delete evidence, threats against whistleblowers, jokes about stupid users who trusted their data to Brightcore. 4:23 p.m. The first major client pulled out. Microsoft announced they were reviewing their partnership with Brightcore. Within an hour, Amazon, Adobe, and Oracle followed suit. Sarah's message came through. Emergency board meeting called for tomorrow morning. 3 board members have already issued statements distancing themselves from Isabel. 5:15 p.m. Then something unexpected happened. A Brightcore employee, someone still inside, started leaking real-time updates to Reddit. Photos of empty offices as people walked out. Security trying to confiscate personal phones. Isabel reportedly throwing a laptop at a wall. The internet feast on corporate destruction was insatiable. Memes of Isabel were everywhere. Her LinkedIn page was flooded with comments before being taken down. Someone found her country club membership and posted photos of her $1,000 brunches while she was laying off employees. 6 p.m. CNN picked up the story for their evening segment. The anchor played our recordings on live television. Watching Isabel's voice echo across millions of homes was surreal. Jennifer texted the group, "My former colleagues at the firm say the SEC is preparing an investigation. This is moving faster than Enron did." 7:30 p.m. A video surfaced, not one of ours. A Brightcore employee had secretly filmed Isabel's reaction to the recordings. She was screaming at her assistant, calling her incompetent trash, threatening to destroy anyone who betrayed me. The assistant was crying. The video went mega viral. Isabel abuse started trending. Former employees began sharing their own stories. The dam had completely broken. Marcus pulled new data. Stock futures are indicating another 30% drop at Monday's open. Investment banks are modeling for potential bankruptcy. 8:45 p.m. Thomas Grant released a statement through his lawyer, not Brightcore's PR team. He was shocked and disturbed by the recordings. He promised full cooperation with all investigations, and notably didn't mention his wife once. The rats were fleeing the sinking ship. 9:20 p.m. Local news showed protesters outside Isabel's Lincoln Park mansion. Someone had projected "criminal" onto her house in massive letters. Her neighbors were giving interviews, suddenly eager to share stories about her difficult personality. 10:00 p.m. The Reddit leaker posted one final update. Isabel just left with 2 security guards and 3 boxes. Employees are cheering in the lobby. Then, the unexpected. Thomas Grant filed for emergency divorce, citing irreconcilable differences and potential criminal liability. The news broke on TMZ first, then everywhere. He was protecting his assets before the federal investigation began. I sat back in my cheap motel room. I'd been moving locations every day for safety, and felt something I hadn't expected: exhaustion mixed with hollow satisfaction. Isabel's empire was crumbling faster than we'd planned. The recordings had triggered an avalanche we couldn't have predicted. Liam called, his voice shaking with adrenaline. "Did you see? Did you fucking see? She's done. She's absolutely done." "It's not over," I reminded him. "Monday we deliver the final blow." "Ava, she's already destroyed the divorce, the investigations, the public humiliation. She destroyed us systematically, methodically. We return the favor completely." My voice was ice. "Monday, she goes from disgraced executive to federal criminal." As midnight approached, I pulled up Isabel's Instagram before it went private. I'd saved her last post. A photo from last week's charity gala, her smile radiant, champagne in hand, caption, "Living my best life." The comments below it now numbered in the thousands. The internet had found its villain of the week, and they were merciless. Phase 2 was complete. Isabel Grant had lost her company, her reputation, her marriage, and her fortune in less than 36 hours. But I wanted more. I wanted her freedom. Monday would bring the FBI. Monday would bring handcuffs. I closed my laptop and finally allowed myself a small smile. Isabel thought she knew what power was when she destroyed my life with that midnight email. Now she was learning what powerlessness really meant. Monday, 6:00 a.m. I stood across from the FBI field office in Chicago, watching agents arrive for their morning shift. In 3 hours, they would receive a package that would change everything. The video of Isabel with Viktor Kozlov, financial records showing wire transfers from sanctioned Russian accounts, and emails discussing how to hide the transactions. 7:30 a.m. The package was delivered by courier simultaneously to the FBI, the SEC, the Treasury Department, and every major news outlet in the country. We'd learned from the Pentagon Papers, widespread distribution prevents suppression. 8:00 a.m. I positioned myself in a coffee shop with a clear view of Brightcore's building. The end would come where it all started. 8:15 a.m. The first FBI vehicle arrived, then another. Then a convoy. Marcus's voice in my earpiece. "They're in the building, 15th floor first, that's accounting." 8:32 a.m. Conway from the Tribune called. "The FBI just confirmed they're executing search warrants at Brightcore. This is it, isn't it? The final piece?" "Watch for the arrest," I told him. "It'll be public. They want to make an example." 8:45 a.m. Social media exploded. Employees were live tweeting the FBI raid. Boxes of documents being carried out, computers seized, the forensic van pulling into the garage. 9 a.m. Trading halted immediately at market open. Brightcore stock was radioactive. CNBC interrupted regular programming for breaking news, FBI raids, Brightcore headquarters. 9:23 a.m. They found her at her lawyer's office. The footage would become iconic. Isabel Grant, once untouchable, being led out in handcuffs. Her perfect composure finally shattered. Makeup smeared, designer suit wrinkled. She tried to hide her face, but the cameras caught everything. The charges were read on live television: money laundering, violation of federal sanctions, wire fraud, conspiracy. Each count carrying potential decades in prison. 10 a.m. Thomas Grant held an emergency press conference. He looked destroyed, aged 10 years in 3 days. I had no knowledge of my wife's illegal activities. I trusted her completely. And that trust was betrayed. He announced his immediate resignation as CEO. 10:30 a.m. The dominoes fell rapidly. The CFO was arrested at his home. 2 board members were taken in for questioning. The entire C-suite was suspended pending investigation. Jennifer texted the group, "My sources say they're looking at RICO charges. This could take down everyone who benefited from the schemes." 11 Zarkis. a.m. Brightcore's website went dark. Their app stopped functioning. 40,000 employees suddenly unemployed. The company that had seemed invincible 72 hours ago had effectively ceased to exist. Noon. I finally went to Brightcore's building. Police tape everywhere. News vans lined the street. Former colleagues stood in shocked clusters, some crying, some angry, all lost. I saw Maya, my former friend who'd stopped responding to my texts. She looked at me with a mix of fear and awe. Ava, was this? Did you? I said nothing. Let her wonder. Let them all wonder. 2 p.m. The federal prosecutor held a press conference. The evidence was overwhelming and irrefutable. They thanked brave whistleblowers who had risked everything to expose the truth. They promised more arrests were coming. 3 p.m. Isabel's bail hearing. The prosecutor argued she was a flight risk with access to offshore accounts. The judge agreed. Bail set at $10 million, which her frozen assets couldn't cover. She would spend the night in federal detention. The woman who had slept on silk sheets would sleep on a prison cot. 4 p.m. I met the team one last time in the abandoned WeWork space. We didn't celebrate. There was nothing to celebrate. Lives had been destroyed, not just Isabel's, but thousands of innocent employees. We did what we had to do, Sarah said quietly. She forced our hand. Liam added, every action has consequences. We destroyed the evidence of our involvement, wiped servers, burned documents, deleted accounts. We'd learned from Isabel's mistakes, leave no digital footprints. As evening fell, I stood by Lake Michigan, watching the sun set over the city. My phone rang, a job offer from a competitor who'd been following the story. They wanted someone who understood crisis management. I almost laughed. I just managed the biggest crisis in Chicago corporate history. But it wasn't my crisis. It was Isabel's. I'd simply returned what she'd given me. Complete and utter destruction. The news played on my phone. Isabel's mugshot was everywhere. The mighty had fallen in exactly 72 hours, just as planned. But I felt no joy, no satisfaction, just emptiness. Revenge, I learned, doesn't heal wounds. It just creates more of them. My phone buzzed with a CNN alert. Isabel Grant attempted suicide in federal detention. My blood went cold. This wasn't part of the plan. I'd wanted her to suffer, but not like this. Then another update. Attempt failed, Grant under suicide watch. I turned off my phone and walked away. The war was over. There were no winners, only survivors. And tomorrow, somehow, we'd all have to find a way to live with what we'd done. 3 weeks later, Chicago was entering winter, and I walked Michigan Avenue with a coffee warming my hands. The Brightcore building stood dark against the gray sky, a for-lease sign plastered across its entrance. 40 floors of ambition and corruption, now just empty real estate. The news had moved on to other scandals, other villains. Isabel Grant was yesterday's headline, awaiting trial in federal custody. Thomas had fled to Switzerland. The other executives were negotiating plea deals. 40,000 employees had scattered to the wind, searching for new beginnings or just survival. I'd turned down 17 job offers. Every tech company in Chicago wanted to hire the mysterious whistleblower who'd brought down Brightcore. They didn't know it was me, but they knew I'd been at the center of it somehow. My termination had become corporate legend, the spark that lit the fuse, but I couldn't accept any of them. Not yet. I stopped at the spot where I'd stood that night, looking up at the tower after Isabel had destroyed my life. The same reflection stared back from the dark windows, but I was different now. Not stronger, exactly. Just emptier. Revenge had carved out pieces of me I'd never get back. My phone buzzed, Liam texting from San Francisco, where he'd gotten a job at a startup. Fresh beginning, his message said. You should try it. Sarah had moved back to Iowa, opened a small accounting firm. Marcus was teaching cybersecurity at a community college. Jennifer had joined the prosecutor's office, working to convict the people we'd exposed. Everyone had found their after, except me. I kept walking, past the coffee shop where I'd first met Liam with the evidence, past the parking garage where I'd received that termination email. The city was the same, but every corner held ghosts now. At the lakefront, I finally stopped. The water stretched endlessly, gray meeting gray at the horizon. Peaceful, indifferent. The lake didn't care about corporate wars or human destruction. It just existed, constant and cold. I pulled out my laptop and opened a blank document. For weeks, I'd been trying to write my story to make sense of what had happened, but the words wouldn't come. How do you explain becoming a monster to fight a monster? How do you justify destroying thousands of lives to avenge one? You don't. You just live with it. A message popped up. Conway from the Tribune. Isabel Grant's trial starts next month. Will you testify? I closed the laptop without responding. Let the evidence speak for itself. I'd said everything I needed to say in those 72 hours. As darkness fell, I made a decision. Tomorrow, I'd leave Chicago, find a small town somewhere, maybe teach, maybe write, maybe just disappear. Become someone who'd never heard of Brightcore or Isabel Grant or the woman who'd destroyed them both. But tonight, I had one last ritual. I walked to Navy Pier, where tourists still gathered despite the cold. At the end of the pier, I pulled out my Brightcore badge, the one the security guard had taken, but I'd kept a copy, a reminder of who I'd been. Ava Miller, Marketing Executive, Employee ID 7739. I held it over the water, watching my young, hopeful face in the photo. That woman was gone. She'd died the night Isabel sent that email. What remained was something else. Not better, not worse, just different. I let it fall. The badge disappeared into the dark water without a sound. Behind me, the city lights blazed against the winter sky. Somewhere in federal detention, Isabel Grant was learning what it meant to lose everything. Somewhere else, 40,000 people were rebuilding their lives. And here I stood, free but not free. Victorious, but not victorious. Revenge, I'd learned, was a fire that consumed everything, the guilty, the innocent, and especially the one who lit the match. I turned my back on the lake and walked into the city one last time. Tomorrow, I'd disappear. Tonight, I'd just walk, carrying the weight of what I'd done, knowing that some victories feel exactly like defeat. The cold wind cut through my coat as I headed toward the train station. In my pocket, my phone stayed silent. No more conspiracies, no more revenge, no more Ava Miller. The woman who'd brought down an empire in 72 hours. Just a ghost walking through a city of ghosts. Finally understanding that when you dedicate your life to destroying someone, you destroy yourself too. But sometimes, in the darkest moments of injustice, that's a price you're willing to pay. Sometimes, becoming the villain is the only way to stop one. Thank you so much for listening to this story of corporate revenge and its devastating consequences. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Drop a comment below and let's connect. Are you tuning in from your morning commute, late at night, or perhaps during a break at work? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more gripping stories like this one. And please share your thoughts about Ava's journey. Did she go too far? Or did Isabel Grant get what she deserved? Let me know what you think.